So last week I held a panel on the main stage of WebSummit Vancouver with Kyle, the founder of Huntress, and Arvind, the founder of Glean. Both of whom have been on the Product Market Fit show. It's actually how I met them. And so we held this panel called What It Really Takes to Create a Unicorn, where they both shared like the early days of Glean and the early days of Huntress and what they had to do to get to a few million ARR. It's two very different stories. One was like a distinguished engineer at Google that raised $15 million out of the gate, but had no revenue for the first 2 years. And another who had to prove himself like every single step of the way, got rejected by 60 VCs, slept in his car for 50 weeks, did all the grind stuff. And now both of them are at 100 million ARR.
That's product market fit.
Product market fit.
Product market fit.
I called it the product market fit question.
Product market fit.
Product market fit.
Product market fit.
Product market fit.
I mean, the name of the show is Product Market Fit.
Do you think the Product Market Fit show has product market fit? Because if you do, then there's something you just have to do. You have to take out your phone. You have to leave the show 5 stars. It lets us reach more founders and it lets us get better guests. Thank you. WebSummit Vancouver, how you guys doing? That's not bad. That's not bad. Are we good at that?
After lunch, it's okay.
That's good. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Well, you know, quick little story before I jump in. I really was trying to figure out how to subtly plug in my podcast into here, right? Into this thing, the Product Market Fit show. And I was going through the schedule and I saw that the headliners today that started it off from Artisan and from Graphite, both were on the Product Market Fit show. Then we have Jack Noon, who's earlier here. He was on the Product Market Fit show. And then I saw Imad from Mercury. He's on the Product Market Fit show. And of course, these two guys are on the Product Market Fit show. And I decided I wasn't going to be subtle at all. And I was just going to tell you, shamelessly, cringeworthy, like borderline cringeworthy, to download the Product Market Fit show on Spotify, on Apple, because that's where you get the full hour of these two guys talking.
It sounds like we all have really bad decision making to hang out with Pablo. That's
right?
What it really is.
That's what it is. That's what it is. Well, with that said, welcome to WebSummit, guys.
Thank you.
So, Arvind, your background is, he's a distinguished engineer, which is like the peak of engineering at Google. You leave, you start Rubrik, which is now a $20 billion public company. And 3 years in, you guys are a unicorn. 5 years in, you're worth like $3 billion. You raised a couple $100 million. And then at the absolute peak where everything that you wanted to happen was happening, you leave. Why would you do that?
Well, so that was 2019, and I left Rubrik to start Glean. And in fact, at Rubrik, we were very fortunate. We were growing fast as a company, and with that growth, we also realized that we were not productive anymore. As there was a year when we went from 500 to 1,500 employees in 1 year, and that's 3 times as many employees. But when we looked at our lines of code, it was actually flat. Like we couldn't produce more with all the new people, and it turned out that in a company, as you get larger, the communication overhead and people knowing how to do work, how to figure things out, who are the experts that can go and get help from, all of these things become difficult. And we had this one big problem. Everybody in the company was complaining about not being able to find any information inside our company. And I'm a search engineer, as you said, by training. Before Rubrik, I was at Google for many years. And when people said that they can't find things, I said, I also can't find anything because we have 300 different SaaS systems. Our knowledge is spread all over the place. So we should go and buy a product, connect all of those things together. As we tried to buy that product, we realized there's nothing to buy. And that's when I got excited about building this new product. Initially as part of Rubrik, but then I thought that doesn't make sense and we have to do it separately. So that's the reason why I left and to start Glean.
And then, because of your track record, you raised $15 million out of the gate. But, when you start a startup, you guys have been through it, the thing you want the most is revenue. You want this thing to start working. You went 2 years with 0 revenue. What was that phase like?
Yeah, so search is a very hard product to build in an enterprise. It takes a lot of effort to build all these integrations into different enterprise systems, build a deep technology that can understand your business, your people. And we knew going in that it's going to take us time to build this product. And so the company was designed in that particular way. So that's why we first raised a good amount of capital that would actually let us go and build this product, take the 18 months, 24 months it's going to take us without having to go to investors, because you don't want to go to investors again, after 2 years and not having even $1 in revenue. So it was by design, like, we wanted to build it that way. The journey was fine. Like, you just have to convince people along the way that, yes, we are on the right path. You have to make sure that people believe in the vision because, like, just like investors, even the employees get worried, if you're not making money, like, in a short amount of time.
And then, Kyle, you had a very different kind of story. You were like a rock star hacker. You're at the NSA. You're literally like fighting terrorists. What made you leave that to start Huntress?
Well, clearly I did it all wrong because I heard I need to become a distinguished Google engineer, build a $5 billion company, then everything else happens. And I didn't do it that way. Part of the best part of working at NSA was like we actually had a mission. And I knew firsthand that like, look, there's a lot of businesses in the world that fall below kind of the Fortune 500. Even so much I looked at it as like a poverty line. And so for me, even though there was like a whole lot I could do on the offensive mission, hacking in, gathering intelligence, creating like exploits and implants, that was cool. But I realized that there was a lot of the market that was never going to have like access to my talent. So how could I distill my talent into a product for kind of all the businesses that fall below that 1% Fortune 500? And thankfully it was enough. I guess even though I had satisfaction, I felt really good at NSA. It wasn't enough. And I imagine that's part of what you hit. There was diminishing returns.
Yeah.
And maybe I think I just hit that. I recognized like I could keep doing this, but it was on to the next major problem.
And then one of the things you told me on the podcast was about a year in, you still don't have any revenue, and there's kind of this like make or break moment. What was that story?
All right, I thought we were going to not talk about the terrible, embarrassing parts, but it turns out you have to have revenue, right, if you want to get paid. And especially me as a dad, that like my kids were 5, 9, and 11 when I started Huntress, so it's not like we were in the basement. And I realized, okay, we had pretty good idea. We were going to go after these from small businesses all the way to small enterprise. But again, if I couldn't show traction, it didn't matter, and I definitely wasn't going to get investment. So we did. We scratched up all of our last cash. We were a Baltimore-based company, down to this main show for people who provided outsourced IT. And we realized these outsourced IT providers might have anywhere between 20 to 200 businesses for each one. And we put it all on the line, literally maxed. The credit cards were already done at this point. We slept in the car going down. This is a little bit of a theme, and all the way down to the point. But what was nice is that year and a half of us learning all the hard ways made it so even though this was our last dime, we kind of had a good idea by that time what problems people were going to ask us about, and it turns out we killed it at that show. I'm not saying celebrate grind culture, but I'm saying if you do the research the right way, you can take that level of risk. And for us, it was just the right show at the right time with the right maturity and right hurdles. And thankfully, that was our big moment that produced our first handful of customers that turned out the flywheel never stopped at that point forward.
And then what was because his fundraising was, track record based, 15 million out of the gate. What was your fundraising?
It turns out nobody cares if you're an NSA hacker. And when you say, like many of you are probably going maybe B2C, or maybe you're going B to enterprise. I will tell you in 2015, the right answer was not go B to the very smallest B that you can't quote a single one of your logos because nobody knows who they are. And that for me, dude, like no one believed. I mean, you name a Silicon Valley investor, they have told me politely and very directly. At times, I think it was like, go fuck yourself. Like there was that level of being that bold.
How many did you pitch?
At least 60 no's that I counted. And what's neat is most of them have come back with term sheets. But when you have to prove a new market, and I wanted to bring humans in the loop, but all they heard is services. I didn't know how bad I was at pitching, like that I should be pitching a SaaS product, and all they heard was 60% gross margins, right. Even though we're not. The things that I'm telling you is you might not know as a technical entrepreneur, even though it's solved in your brain, some of your biggest hurdles might actually be how you sell your own story. And I wish I had a little bit more of that product. I'm sure at Google you learned a little bit of like a product has to deliver revenue. Right. And I know for a fact at Rubrik you learned that. I did it the hard way, and it was not beautiful.
Arvind, jump back to you. One of the things that really struck me about your story is, everybody these days knows like the lean startup, Eric Ries, and kind of validating and stuff like that. You took a bit of a different path. In fact, one of your quotes was like, I chose not to talk to too many people. I don't know if you remember saying that, but why did you structure it that way at the beginning? Why didn't you really follow the kind of the lean startup methodology?
I think both paths are actually fine. For us, we felt that, there's a right moment for us to go and build this product. as fast as we can and go big. And we didn't want to be constrained by resources, by lack of, for example, funding. Because if you sort of are in that mode, then you have to be more careful. You have to be conservative. You cannot go and build a large team at the get-go. And for us, land grab was actually important because we were alone in the market. We were the first product in AI, in enterprise Gen AI, and we knew that this was going to take over the world in a big way. And before others come into the market, we wanted to be there. And we wanted to
was that confidence you got from just your previous places you worked? Like I didn't have that confidence till probably the last couple of years, but you guys just went down. You think that built over time from past success?
Yeah, I think we had similar path that we took at Rubrik, which was also to actually go big and go all in. I guess it's I guess part of it is what motivates you, what's your reason behind starting a company, and for us it was actually to make huge big impact, and it's okay if we fail and miserably crash, we either go big or we.
Did you do a TAM analysis, ROI analysis, all that stuff?
No, I don't. And actually, it's an interesting thing. You were talking about track record, and for me, yes, I had actually built a good, successful company before. So, as such, it was actually easy for me to go and convince somebody that yes, I can actually go and build a product again and raise some money. But nobody actually wanted to invest in this idea that I had, which is search inside the company, because in that space there was no success in the industry. There were many attempts.
A lot of tried, right? A lot of tried to.
Yeah, a lot of many companies tried and failed, and I had investors actually come and tell me that, look, I know you can build a great company. Here's a blank check. I'm tell me how much money you want to raise, but don't do enterprise search. Do something else. And so for me, I think it was. I guess part of how I think about a startup is you don't have to actually do deep TAM or market analysis. I think first you have to start with fundamentals. And if you see a problem that you believe a large number of people have, that's enough. I don't need to actually go and quantify that with dollars. And that was the case in our idea. Every single person in my company, every single friend of mine who work at other companies, they would all talk about how hard it was to find things inside their own companies. And so I was fully convinced that if we solve the problem, then we're going to have a large market.
Many aspiring entrepreneurs I meet also get that wrong of they search for perfection instead of good enough. Hey, the market is big enough, move on. You don't have to perfectly quantify.
Yeah.
When did you know it was kind of ready to launch then? What line in the sand did you draw?
Yeah. Well, in Glean's case, since it's a product that actually, it's like ChatGPT. You come and ask questions, and Glean answers all of those questions using all of your internal company's data, knowledge, context. And so, which means that we could actually test it ourselves. We were a team of 50 people, and we used the product every day ourselves. And initially, it was bad. It was not answering those questions, and so we knew we couldn't launch. But at some point, it became capable of actually answering questions really well, and we could see that our employees now, as new people were joining, they were onboarding on the tool, they were benefiting from it, they were actually raving that, hey, this is the first time I've been to a company where I was able to onboard myself. And so we had the proof from our own team, which actually made us confident. There was that time when, yes, now we're ready to go big and build our go-to-market motion.
Kyle, one of the things I want to ask you is, you mentioned you had 3 kids when you started. You also told me you slept 16 weeks in a car at one point as part of an accelerator. So my question to you is, how did you justify the sacrifices as you went through it those first couple of years?
I think what I've just learned is I never sit on stage next to Arvind anymore. That makes me sound homeless.
That makes everybody. That humbles everyone. That's not just you, man.
The point I want to get to the audience, right? There is a real misnomer, I think, out there with hustle culture. If you just grind infinitely hard and work harder and sacrifice yourself, you'll have success. I actually think that is a huge misnomer. But what was important to me is I always kept very close awareness of my trade-offs. So when I did my first and only startup accelerator, I was a tech founder, a hardcore kernel developer in Windows. I didn't know how to run a business, so I had to have the 16 weeks of curriculum. Yeah. And when they gave me $50K in exchange for a couple points on my cap table, the company's worth nothing, so that trade-off was okay. But all the other entrepreneurs whose businesses aren't in business anymore, I'm not saying that this happened because they didn't sleep in their car, they just invested their cash instead of on like what was going to help them go to market or prove out, eating your own dog food, actually getting out there in the wild. They put it into a hotel room and a handful of other things. And to be honest, I slept kind of comfortable in the trunk of that Ford Focus. I'm not saying celebrate it, but the ultimate point for me, I had a very clear that my runway was going to run out. And if I had to choose, I still had a gym there that was in the building. I was still showering. I didn't see the kids a little while, but it was finite. And I think that's a really important part for the audience to take away, that it's not just about infinite grind. You need to actually have like some level of basic ROI analysis for just about everything for me. So that's how I go back in hindsight, at least justifying the time away from the kiddos and the, again, grinding mentality in the back of a Ford Focus.
And then
I would just say you sort of are not emphasizing it. It's actually important to have that. It's important to actually work really hard to be very, very careful about your capital. And because you're also setting a culture and an example for the company as it grows. So I actually don't know of any success, where hard work was not part of it.
Yeah, I agree. And like you said, the example you're providing is culturally as well. They're going to look at you, especially as a founder.
So I'll ask the same question to both of you. Kyle, when was the moment, moving away now from the grind, when you felt like you had true product market fit?
I didn't believe it because of the bootstrapping. I didn't believe it till well after we had it. And what I mean by that is I just got so paranoid from years of bootstrapping, being told no, et cetera, that I developed a little bit of I had to over-rotate because of so many misses. I almost couldn't believe my own success. So even though I think product market fit happened probably year and a half, 2 years into the business of actually having transactions, and they were predictable, meaning this week I could see X number of deals, and next week it would be +2, then the following week it'd be +4. I don't think that I actually fully respected that, and as a founder, it took another founder telling me I had that probably 3 years earlier before then I believed it. So that's my way of saying even when I had it, I didn't know.
So, same here. Actually, I still feel that we're still looking for it. And part of it is, we are in this space with AI where things change fundamentally so fast. And in fact, how all of us are going to be working in the future is going to change, and we're all about helping people, with how they work. And so I think I don't think we get to actually be in this space where we can say that yes, we have this product market fit. Now this is our product and now go and scale. You have to continuously iterate and keep learning how people's work habits change and keep evolving your product based on that.
10-second answer each. What's one piece of advice you would give an early stage founder?
Well, work hard and actually believe in your idea. Don't give up.
You can ship much earlier than you believe. Even if it's busted broken, if it's delivering value, it's probably good enough. And value is measured by people giving you $1 or a nickel or whatever.
Boom. Give it up for these fine gentlemen, please. Thank you.
85% of people who listen to the show just started listening to it this year. You're probably one of those people. In fact, the odds are 85%. Guess what? You need to go back because there are over 100 other episodes that you need to check out that are just as good, if not better, than this one. Don't miss out.